Weingarten, President Randi Weingarten of the American Federation of Teachers, and she'll be speaking on behalf of the National AFL-CIO on our position on immigration reform. That'll be followed by Carlos Durate, who's with the Houston Working Group for Common Sense Immigration Reform. Hernan Trujillo will be here and will tell his story. Mary Nellie Roman, who is a dream student, will tell a little bit about herself, followed by Reginald Lilly, who's president of the NAACP Houston branch, and then we'll have our congresspersons also follow them. So, nothing else to say right now. I'm going to introduce Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers.
So we just had an amazing town hall, so to speak, in terms of really talking to some of the people here about why we need immigration reform and what it means to families in America if we have immigration reform, what it means in terms of the real continuance of the American dream. How do we make that real, in a real way, for families, all of our children? And so let me just say, I want to thank Richard, I want to thank the Harris County AFL-CIO for hosting this event. I want to make sure my phone stops ringing. I want to thank these two wonderful members of Congress who have been there every single step of the way to fight for justice and fight against injustice, both in Texas and in the halls of Congress. So the bottom line is this. The AFL-CIO, all of us, all 16 million of us, from every single state, in every single trade, in every single place, we are all in favor of comprehensive, compassionate immigration reform that starts with a path to citizenship for all undocumented people who are in the United States right now. Second, we want immigration reform that helps stop the exploitation of workers, that helps create the revenues that we know if we have real reform we will have in this country, that builds this country, particularly for the dreamers who from no fault of their own are in this country and are now shut out of being able to do the work that they can and will do to the benefit of Americans. So the bottom line here is this. We know we need comprehensive, compassionate reform that brings families together, that stops the threats of deportation, that stops the exploitation of workers that happens, that stops people from living in the shadows of a secondary economy, that builds once and for all the American economy and creates what the Statue of Liberty has said, come to our shores. The way that my grandfather came to our shores from Russia, the way so many of others of us have come as sisters and brothers and children of immigrants. That is what we are here for, and we are not going to take no for an answer. That is why we're starting around today in Houston, other places throughout this country. April 10th, there's a march in Houston, but bottom line is, last election, it was clear. We need to have one country, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all. That means a path for immigration for all. And it starts today in Houston. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Duarte. I'm the State Director for Mi Familia Mota. And I am honored to be here standing in front and supported by giants that have been fighting for decades, no less, decades to get fair treatment for workers, fair treatment for immigrants. And the message is very clear. We need comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship, and we need it now. The Latino community spoke with a very clear voice in November 2012. 12.5 million Latinos came out and voted, breaking all expectations, and the message was clear. We have taken enough, and we are not taking it anymore. We are going to be making our elected officials accountable, not only by asking them and going on all of these mobilizations that are being planned, but also we are going to be taking a scorecard and remembering who is supporting the American community that has said overwhelmingly that they support immigration reform, but the Latino community in particular that is going to be coming out again in record numbers in 2014 and in 2016, because we will remember who has supported us, and we will remember who has stood in the way of comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. I want to just recognize that this coalition is part of a 40+ states that have been organizing to demand comprehensive immigration reform. But locally, we have, again, giants that have been organizing for decades. We have Houston Unido, we have FIEL, we have, of course, AFL-CIO, and we have TOP, and all of these organizations that are sending the message not only to our members of Congress that we need comprehensive immigration reform, but most importantly to our community, because we know that nothing is going to happen unless we get involved. So I'm here also to invite you for April the 10th, where we are going to be coordinating with the national movement. There's going to be a national mobilization in Washington, D.C., but also all across Texas, and here in Houston, we are going to be demanding of our senators, particularly on the 10th, that they listen to our community. The vast majority of Americans are in agreement that the time for immigration reform is now. So we are going to be delivering thousands of petitions to Senator Cruz and to Senator Cornyn, letting them know that the time is now. So I encourage all of you to participate with us. And again, thank you to Congressman Aldrin, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, and of course, President Randi. Thank you so much for having labor, taking the steps that you guys have taken, because the time for immigration reform is now, and it's only going to happen with the support of our community, the institutions, and of course, our Congress members. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randi Weingarten. I came here 10 years ago, and since then, I've been longing for the day that I can see my family again. I had to come to this country because after finishing high school, my mother is starting to develop a disease on her knees, so I have to earn the money to pay the treatments. Coming to this country as an immigrant, it's really tough. For our condition, we suffer all kinds of abuses, we have all kinds of threats, and even wage theft. So it happens to me twice. To earn the money that I needed to pay for the medical treatments, I have to work even at 3 jobs at a time. I have to work 16 hours a day. For that, I got sick, so I was hospitalized twice. It cost me a lot of effort and time to get back on my feet. For that, I know that comprehensive immigration reform is really important, because there are so many people outside fighting just to try to make a living. There are so many people outside living with a wage that is below the poverty level. There are so many people outside has been suffering abuses, and there's nobody who can actually help. There are so many, even when this country is an amazing country, there are so many gaps that we need to reach. There are so many problems that we need to overcome. And that's why I want to thank all the people that is putting an effort to make it possible, because we really need to remember that we are humans. We want to stop living with the stigma of second-class citizens, because we are not. We are honest people who come to this country to work. We have the values. We have the values to know that working hard, we can make a living. We just want the same opportunities that these citizens have, because every single day we have the responsibilities to make the right thing in this country. But even then, all the we are denied with the rights that only the citizens have, because we are every single day we are committing to fulfill the obligations. Because the only thing that we want is to work. The only one that we want the only thing that we want is to have the same opportunities. We just want to stop living with the fear that someday the people who make this country their home, someday maybe they are going to be deported. We want to stop living with that fear. And for many of us who have to leave our families behind, we just want the opportunity to reunite again, because we are not complete. We're always living with that hole that nobody can fill. So that's why we really need a comprehensive immigration reform. And I'm again thanking everyone, because the effort of all of us is going to make it possible, and we're not going to stop until we can make it possible. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sheila. I came here representing KID, and first of all, I would like to say it's a great honor to be here. I wouldn't imagine myself being here, as I am one of the students who benefited from deferred action. I came here, well, my parents brought me here when I was 1 year old. I know nothing about my place of birth, which is Mexico. This is all I know. And to get this opportunity to be legalized here, it's amazing. But now that I have status, it's a feeling that I can't explain. To go to school and not be criticized for being illegal. I'm sorry, but this topic specifically gets to me to the deepest part of my heart, because it is important for my family to be legalized. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for that. And I hear a lot that the fear is gone, that we have a status, that I am legalized, but the fear is still there. I still live with the fear that I see my parents go in the morning for work, but I always wonder when they come back. Will this be the last time I see them? I still say goodbye to them with the kids and be careful, and like we say in Spanish, con cuidado, Dios te bendiga. But I hope I see them in the afternoon. And it's just a fear that is still there, and we need something to protect me from being with that fear every day. I'm sorry. That's why this comprehensive reform is very important. We need this. Not only me as a student who has the fear of not seeing their parents, but everybody else who's a worker, everybody else who works day by day to live. Everybody is a citizen by heart, but just because of a papers, we're criticized as illegals.
Let me say good morning to everyone. I want to thank Mr. Shaw, Secretary of the AFL-CIO, and certainly I'm honored to be here with Ms. Randi Weingarten. First time seeing and meeting her in person. I want to say that I'm honored to be privileged to be in the presence of our Congressman, Al Green and Sheila Jackson-Lee. I'm just honored to be here to be able to speak in behalf of the NAACP Houston branch regarding a very important part of our society, and that's our immigration laws. I have with me, and I can supply to you all, issue briefs as well as a resolution from the NAACP National, from Mr. Hillary Shelton, who is president of not only advocacy and policy, but also of our Washington Bureau. Let me just say briefly, to express the tenets, the basic tenets of the NAACP's position on immigration. NAACP believes that we should have immigration policies and laws that emphasize, first of all, basic human dignity. Basic that protects the civil rights and the civil liberties of all workers and all people. And we believe that can be done and still protect our borders, provide security for our country, but also protects not only just low-wage workers or undocumented workers, but all workers from the whims, wills, and mercy of unscrupulous employers. Because we have people standing around us, and every day we're aware of instances where people are being exploited because they're in the shadows, because they don't have certain papers, or they're at the mercy of employers that know they have advantage of them. And let me say this, policy or politics, and this is Reginald's interpretation, expresses one's will, intent, and motives toward a certain demographic. If it's your will to support a certain demographic, a certain people of our community, you can tell it in the bills and the laws that's proposed by our legislators. Now, the two legislators standing beside me, you can always tell who they're protecting, who they're concerned about. It's all people. Not to give one or some an advantage over others, but to make sure all of us have the same opportunity to a livable wage, to provide for our families, and have the same freedoms and rights that our Constitution provides for everybody. It should not be that some has to fight for their rights of basic human dignity. It says something about us when certain people are treated as though they're not even human. And we need comprehensive, we need, as Ms. Weingarten said, compassionate, and we need considerate immigration laws. And what I mean by consider yourself. Anyone who opposes comprehensive immigration, consider yourself. What if it was you being separated from your family? What if it was your wife being exploited? What if it was your son? What if it was you yourself? That all you wanted to do was work and provide food and shelter and a good way of life for your family. We need in our country to be mindful that our immigration laws reflect the core values or the lack of, the principles or the lack of principles of our country. Amen. We say that we are Christian men, and we got to be mindful, and I'm going to be through, we got to be mindful of how we treat God's people. God created all of us. God created every man that's born. And we've got to be careful when we carry that name, that how we treat each other. We need comprehensive immigration. We need it now. We need our legislators, and I want to say this, we not only need comprehensive immigration, but I got to say this, we also need our unions. It's our unions that continue to fight for rights, for worker rights, for livable wages. We have so that we can be able to have a workplace that's safe and that where we're protected. And then we need to fight for voting rights. We need to keep the Sheila Jackson Lees and the Al Greens in office. We need to make sure that we have representation. Because if we lose our right to vote, you lose access to be able to speak to power, to speak to people who legislate, that make the laws and the policies of our land. Again, I want to say we need comprehensive, we need compassionate and considerate immigration laws, and we need it now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. And I think that we ought to give Randy a very special technical side. She represents labor. Labor represents millions of Americans. and labor has always been a part of these human rights, civil rights battles. Let's give labor one more example. Let's make a couple of points quickly. First point, 10 years ago, a pathway to citizenship was a great idea. However, today, the pathway has to become a highway to citizenship. We need to widen that pathway so that we can get people into citizenship a lot quicker. And there are persons who say they want a pathway to legalization. I want to tell you what that means to me. Legalization does not mean a pathway to visas. Legalization does not mean a pathway to temporary employment within the country. Legalization means to me a highway to citizenship so that people will have the same rights that I have in this country. And finally, so that my colleague will have ample time, I want to say this. And Randy is leaving, and I want to make sure that before Randy leaves, my colleague speaks. I want to honor both of them in this way. But this is important. America the Beautiful became a more beautiful America with the waves of immigrants that preceded these. And I want you to know without question, reservation, hesitation, or equivocation, America the Beautiful will be a more beautiful America when we complete comprehensive immigration.
There's a lot of love in this room, Randy. You've come to an area that is full of love. And as we stand here, allow me just to let Marnell come forward and stand with us. Let me have Sharifa come forward. Maria, come on this side over here, Jimenez. And nobody else is being left out. Gail, move in a little bit. We've already got it. Let me first of all thank Richard Shaw and my dear, dear friend Richard Shaw, my dear, dear, dear friend Darrell Worthen, the president of the AFL-CIO. Let the love go out. All of the others not being mentioned, we are part of the family. I do want to say this. I want to thank Houston. I want to thank the community of Houston. I want to acknowledge the Greater Houston Partnership, because over the years there have been more people coming around the circle and being part of the family. Randy,
I'm here.
I just want you to know that, if you would. There you are. When we see the yellow, we know you are here. And I want them to understand that that has not gone unnoticed. I want you all to understand that the partnership has been in Houston, but they've been in Washington. And they have been in offices of leadership saying, we need comprehensive immigration reform. Now, where do we come in at? Let me just share why in these brief moments so that Randy can be here. What is America? Who are we? What does the huddled masses mean? It's the Russian grandfather of Randi Weingarten, who came to this nation and was able, even though I know what his status might have been in those ghettos of many years ago, he could have his family. It is Senator Ted Kennedy, the Irish legacy that he loved in his life, when they were able to come. And as he forged the beginning of an immigration reform bill, he was so saddened that the Irish that were coming in this era were unstatused, overstatus. It is the Italians who championed the Vatican, now with a new pope, who huddled in ghettos in the early 1900s. And it is really El Salvadorians fleeing from devastation with temporary protective status, Liberians forced because of the violence of Liberia with deferred enforcement. It is a sister, as I listened to her, who spoke about being in water. None of us have that experience. That's not nasty. That's not criminal. That's someone who had a hope for a better life. And I want her to know that we haven't gotten comprehensive immigration reform, but the Violence Against Women Act, which is a story that she told earlier, now protects immigrant women because Congressman Green and myself and others would not let the Violence Against Women Act pass without making sure that she was protected. It is Maria. She's a teenager, but she's got at least 40 years. And you know what she told me in a listening session? That more people are dying, more bodies are being picked up on the U.S. side of the border than ever in history. 400 have died in a period of time. And so we're not fooling around here. Or if a dignified head of the bus drivers union, Sharitha, would take issue about high skills, low skills. I support STEM and tech. That's one of our issues. But all we're asking is to allow people to pay taxes, to work, to be citizens, access to citizenship. To my friends in the United States Senate, we don't want any stopgap measures. We don't want anybody saying that you can get a card. We want access to citizenship. We'll wait in line, we'll pay our fees, but we want no masquerading of comprehensive immigration reform and access to citizenship. Let me put these 3 points on the table. We want H-1Bs. We want STEMs. We want to be able to have our families reunited. And we want those, as my DREAM Act has said, we want to stop the fear of deportation. And we want to make sure that those who have been barred, who have already gone back, separating mothers and fathers, or maybe the woman that was in Dallas who came to me in Washington and said, my husband has a card, I could be a dentist. Listen to that. A contributing member of society, but I can't get any status to go to school. And the school accepted me, but they said you can't come. And so I want America to understand that no one is asking for a handout in comprehensive immigration reform. We've got 4 major points. Access to citizenship with no stop and goes. Family unification with adult children and siblings being able to come, who waited for 20 years plus. We want to have the high-tech H-1Bs. We want to work with farm workers. But all those who have been barred for no reason whatsoever, we want to make sure that families can come back together. The last point I want to say, that the question I started with is, who is America? Houston, I think you understand it, many of you in Houston. For those of you who are still trying to understand, listen to the stories and go back and look at your legacy of immigration. If it is you, then you get it. And then I want to thank you. Come on up here, sister. Because I'm going to call for the March on Washington. Yeah! And I want New Yorkers, and I want Midwesterners, I want the Deep South, because I know that they describe you in America as not wanting comprehensive immigration reform, and I know who you are. You are people who love your nation and love your soldiers, who go to these faraway fields, and their heritage is a heritage of diversity and immigrants. You want to say to the soldier that is laying on the bed at Walter Reed in Bethesda, you want to say to them, thank you. Thank you for shedding your blood for America. Come to Washington. March on Washington. Who have walked and come and been able to claim a land. Our Jewish brothers and sisters understand it. Our Arab brothers and sisters understand it. We want to march on Washington. Right. We'll meet you in Washington. Not out of contempt, not out of contempt, not out of dislike, but out of love for a country that has stood around the world. What is America? It is all of us. All right. What
I would like to do now is conclude this news conference, but I have 5 introductions I want to make so you'll know who's in the room and you may want to interview them. First of all, we have the president of the Houston Independent School Board here, Andy Eastman.
Oh, she just walked out.
Just walked out.
We'll be right back.
We've also got the president of the Texas AFL-CIO, Becky Mo.